Hi everybody. I hope that you've been enjoying the 2021 Spring Arts Festival so far here at Kennesaw State University. My name is Chris Malone and I'm an assistant professor of animation and illustration for the School of the Arts. Today's workshop is called The Art of Comics, Storytelling Through Composition. Now, I've worked on a lot of really fun shows throughout my career, such as Archer, Game Grumps, Cyanide and Happiness, Adam Ruins Everything, and most recently, Baby Shark. Now, I've worked in a variety of different roles, such as working on keyframes, character design, background design, but my favorite thing to do is to work in storyboarding. And that is because my favorite aspect of visual storytelling is composition. And that's going to be a major focus of the workshop today. So I'll be using comics as a way to, for you to be able to effectively tell a story that will be able to direct your readers and audience through your comics, through your illustrations, and even your animations. It's an effective tool, it's a fun technique, and we have a lot of fun stuff planned for you today. So there will be 3 mini exercises and 1 large exercise at the end. So let's go ahead and get started. All you're going to need for your tools will be something to draw on, like some paper. And you can use a pencil, mechanical pencil, or a pen. Myself, for a lot of these, I've actually been using my iPad Pro, Apple Pencil, and I've been using the app called Procreate. But you can use Photoshop, Clip Studio, whatever's available to you guys to be able to, follow along. Essentially, as long as you're able to just draw, that's all you're going to need. Now, another thing I'd like to start off with before we jump into the workshop will be some really, really essential books that I would recommend that you pick up if you want to strengthen your narrative skills, your visual narrative skills. The first one is called Will Eisner's Comics and Sequential Art. This is one of my personal favorites. How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way by Stan Lee and John Buscema. So next up is Framed Ink. So Marcos Matteo Mestre did that. And then we have 2 books by Tom Bancroft here, Creating Characters with Personality, and his other book called Character Mentor. So in today's workshop, I'm going to be presenting you with a few examples that will be straight from these books. And so these have been books that have helped me a lot out in my career, and I highly recommend that you guys pick them up whenever you get a chance. So let's go ahead and begin, shall we? And welcome back to the Art of Comics, Storytelling Through Composition with me, Professor Chris Malone. Now, the agenda for today's workshop will be the introduction, which we already got out of the way, going over the tools and helpful books, which we also covered, and then we're going to go into 3 lessons and exercises, which will cover over panel direction, camera angles, lines of action, and an exercise for all 3 of those. And then we will wrap up today with a talk about page composition, and then an activity that will utilize all 3 skills that you learned from the first 3 exercises. So the first thing we're going to be covering is panel direction. And this is one of my favorite things to talk about with young cartoonists, because many cartoonists will begin making comics by working with a series of panels in sequential order with no idea of how much of an impact each panel can have on every other panel on the entire page. Essentially, every panel has the unique ability to be able to guide and lead the reader through the composition. Now, with a lot of people who started animation first before going into comics, they may be used to storyboards, which will just be a sequence of images side by side. And yes, it does tell a story. It is sequential art, and in a way, it is comics. But if we really want to take advantage of the unique medium that is comics, we can start planning out every single panel to lead directly into the adjacent ones. So before I start off with that, one of the most helpful things to keep in mind with it is setting up each comic panel. Here we have we have a picnic basket drawn by Tom Bancroft in his books Character Mentor and Creating Characters of Personality. And in section A up here at the top, we're able to see that the focus is clearly on the picnic basket. However, by having the picnic basket be directly in the center of the panel, sure, we're conveying to the reader the information that we're focusing on a picnic basket. It doesn't really allow us a lot of space to be able to work with the environment, with the trees, with the grass, because everything is around the picnic basket. However, in example B, asymmetry, we have separated into something called the rule of thirds, in which you could separate both vertically and horizontally any image into 9 individual rectangles, as we see here, but we have 2 columns and 2 rows. And this gives us the ability to be able to have focus elements on the crisscrosses of each one of these rows and columns. And it allows us to have more room to work with, even though the same size of the panel, or even though the panel is the exact same size as it was in the symmetry example above it. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring this up first is because we want to be able to make sure that we have enough space in each panel to be able to lead us into the next one. And an example of that here is from a book by artist Tom Foster called Tips for Guiding a Reader Through Comic Art. And as we can see here, in example A, we have a motorcyclist and some guy wearing a tank top getting into an argument. They start chasing each other, and then the person wearing the helmet just smacks the tank top wearing guy away. And this is such a well composed comic page because as we're able to see with the rough thumbnail over to the right, how every panel leads into the next one, as we're able to see with that red with the red line. And so in panel one, we have we have the female wearing the motorcycle helmet, and she is looking and pointing towards the guy in panel two. Their eyes are at the same eye level, so that keeps us going straight over here to the right, where we see the characters are now from a higher angle. And that creates a zigzag going down into panel four, in which we see the motorcyclist is now charging at the tank top wearing guy. She has her hand up in a punch, and she's also looking towards the guy in panel five. And then the guy in panel five is, kind of mirroring the same effect that she had in panel four, but he's also looking directly towards her in panel six, where we see that she's punching him away. So this page right here demonstrates and illustrates to us how every single panel will be able to lead directly into the next one. So when you start creating your panels, you try your best to be able to make each one lead directly into the following panel. So here is another example by Tom Bancroft of a baseball player throwing a ball. Now, this is a 3-panel composition side by side, and with the baseball player throwing the ball to the left, even though we're going to be reading from left to right, 1, 2, 3, take a moment and think to yourself, like, what panel will the reader want to be able to look into next? Will they want to be able to look into 1, or are they going to be looking at frame number 3? And more than likely, because the baseball player is looking to the left, he's also throwing an object to the left, most likely your reader will be kind of returning back to 1, even though in the English language we read from left to right, up to down. We should be reading from 1, 2, 3, but we could set it up to be able to have the baseball player throwing it to the right. So here we have the baseball players now throwing it to the right, which makes it a lot easier and clearer to the reader that we're going from right to left. Now, this poses another example of how you can kind of modify your composition in order to create a stronger panel direction. Now, I have to admit, these two images here were both created by Tom Bancroft in the same book. However, they were not used like this. I just thought that they would work really well side by side like this. So we have our baseball players throwing the ball to the right. So now we're going from panel 1 to 2 by following the baseball. But in panel 2, we see the ball is now coming from the right to the left. And if we were to simply just flip it, such as this, we're now able to have the baseball player throw the ball to the right. We're able to have our other guy just duck out of the way and have the baseball go right over him. And these two panels are now working with each other based on the panel direction created by panel 1 and how it continues into panel 2. So that's going to be leading us into our first exercise, where you will be drawing two panels. So you will have panel 1 point towards something in panel 2 that is shocking, silly, weird, or just downright unexpected. Now, I recommend that you spend maybe about 15 to 20 minutes on this, so you can go ahead and pause the video right now. I also have an example that I used with Procreate. It's just a quick, rough sketch. These don't need to be finished drawings. This is just you simply practicing the art of panel direction, having your panels lead from one to another. So in mine, I actually have a self-portrait of me running towards my dog who jumped up on the counter and stole a steak from me. So I'm just going to do a time lapse of my quick sketch that I did for that. Keep in mind, this just needs to be a quick sketch. It does not need to be a finished drawing. And I will see you when you're finished. Okay, now that we have finished up the panel direction exercise, I'd like to be able to move into camera angles. Now, camera angles are something that can be used in animation, film, but in comics, it gives us a very unique trait of being able to angle your characters in a way that can aid with panel direction, lead you into panels below you, but also gives you the opportunity to be able to use it in a fashion to be able to make the reader feel something when they're seeing this character. Now, there's a reason why they say if you admire someone that you look up to them, as if you're looking up to them, they come across as confident. And if you're looking down on a person, they can come across as if you're feeling some sort of pity. This can also be used for feelings of like intimidation, weakness, strength. There's so many different options we're able to work with for it. And one of the things I always like to ask my students is this question here. Are we just presenting information? Or are we trying to get the reader to feel something? And the reason why I ask this question is because we can present a character straight on to the reader, head to toe, eye level. But if we want this character to come across as strong or weak, intimidating, sad, pitiful, or whatever feeling you want the reader to feel when they see the character, we can use a variety of different camera angles to achieve such an option or such a feeling. So here we have a giant dinosaur, an A, eating a building. While in B, we have a giant dinosaur eating a building. This is taken from Set the Action, creating backgrounds for compelling storytelling in animation, comics, and games by Elvin Hernandez. Great book if you haven't had a chance to check it out yet. Now, this is the exact same story being told. So if I go back to here, we're just presenting information. That would be A. In A, we're just presenting information. There's a dinosaur eating a building. But if we're trying to get the reader to feel something, and B, because we are looking up at the dinosaur, he's coming across as a lot more intimidating, a lot more dangerous, a lot more scary, and that is achieved simply by changing the angle of the camera to look up at the dinosaur. And then in the second example I have right here, this is taken from that book that I mentioned earlier, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way by Stan Lee and John Buscema. Um, you got you have J. Jonah Jameson in example A, yelling over the phone, probably because he can't get those pictures of Spider-Man that he desperately wants. While in B, he's still yelling, but we're looking down on him here because he's not getting what he wants. He's angry, but he's not intimidating us, the reader. He's trying to intimidate the person on the other side of the phone. But to us, the reader, we're able to feel that things aren't going his way. So looking down on him is a good angle for that. Additionally, if we were to use panel direction with the angle of J. Jonah Jameson in example B yelling, notice how he's at a diagonal angle, and that's going to lead us really well into the next, or into the bottom row. So this is used a lot for certain different characters in many different scenes in movies. So if we take a look at Darth Vader right here in multiple scenes, Darth Vader is a towering figure over many of the other characters. So many of the shots involving Darth Vader are looking up at him because he's towering over everybody. He's an intimidating force. So many camera angles are set up to be able to make the audience feel that. Now, you may remember a meme that happened about a year or so ago of Sailor Moon looking up. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with this, this was a still image from the Sailor Moon series that many artists, hundreds, maybe even thousands of different artists, would redraw this scene and share it on social media. And this scene right here, we're looking down at Sailor Moon, who probably got defeated. I actually haven't seen the scene myself, but maybe she got defeated in a fight, or maybe she learned some unfortunate news. But by looking down at her, we are feeling a sense of, I guess in this case here, maybe pity, maybe a sense of, she got knocked down, but she's going to be getting back up. There's a lot of different feelings we can get just simply by changing the camera angle. So that leads me into the next exercise for you guys. And that is that I want you to draw two panels where you have panel one looking up at a character who is menacing and or intimidating. Panel two will be looking down on a character who appears weak or small. Now, for myself here, I also drew a couple examples here in Procreate, just a few sketches, because I understand that many of you may not have ever worked with drawing in different camera angles before. And the first thing that I want you to keep in mind is that in order to achieve this, we need to have overlap. Now, what I mean by overlap is that if we have our head, our chest, and our pelvis separated into three different parts, if you overlap those different elements, that will be able to achieve a greater sense of overlap and foreshortening, which can be used to be able to really push those camera angles. So that will be in my little exercise that I have here. You'll see that I have the head, the chest, and the pelvis all separated into three different angles, or three different parts, and how you can use those and manipulate those to be able to get your character to look the way that you want them to. So I recommend you may want to spend about 15 to 20 minutes on this. So you can check out my video right after this. And then you can pause the video, draw the two panels, and then I'll see you for part 3. Catch you in a bit. All right, so now that we're done with our camera angle exercise, I'm going to introduce you to the final of the 3 parts here, line of action. The line of action is something that gives the reader a line to follow that defines not just how a character feels or their actions, but the type of attitude and body language that they possess. So if we look here at a character mentor, learn by example to use expressions, poses, and staging to bring characters to life by Tom Bancroft, we see that we have one boxer defeating another with a swift punch. So does the winner just punch the other boxer in the face, or does he absolutely knock his lights out? So in image A, going from the right foot to the punching arm, we have a wide and dynamic arc that shows the winning boxer throwing all of his weight into the punch, giving us a very concrete vision of the winning punch. In contrast, the action in image B is just in the boxer's arm, with the body weight appearing perpendicular to the action, not influencing it. So with such a weak action, the reader would not even be able to be sure if the other boxer is truly defeated. So by having a stronger line of action, like an A going from the foot all the way to the glove, we're able to really exaggerate our poses and just push our examples even further. Now, this creates a very fun composition style where you can use this line of action with with what we learn in exercises 1 and 2 to really direct the eye through your illustrations, through your through your composition, and then especially from panel to panel. So the reason for that is because seeing here from another one of Tom Bancroft's works is that if we have diagonal lines, those come across as very dynamic. But then if we have vertical and horizontal lines, those are going to come across as very dull. And by changing up your line of action, you're going to be able to get more dynamic lines and then also even more options to be able to have these lines lead us into next panels. So the line of action usually starts from the head to the foot. But we can see here that based off of how your character is moving around, if they have their arms up, if they're pulling something, if they're doing an action, we're able to see the line of action followed by that little arrow in all of these examples by Tom Bancroft. And we can plan out our composition and our character angles to be able to use this to our advantage to really guide the focus of the reader. So take, for example, here, if we were to, this is actually by Framed Ink here. So if we take this little arrow that Marcos Mateo Mestre made, we see just like an arrow going up and then making a sharp vision down. And we're able to use this in an interesting way to create a composition based off of this. So we have here a bunch of soldiers are crashing through a hallway about to, raid some bad guys. And if we take a look at the original arrow presented, we're able to see through the 2 soldiers in the back leading up to the soldier in the front, and then his weapon, we're able to see that arrow being used. So let's see that again with another one from Framed Ink. So we have a clash of 2 lines right here. And we have one person sitting at a desk, and we have another holding up a police badge. Obviously, it looks like they're confronting each other, as we're able to see with this clash right here. And the reason why I like bringing this up is because many cartoonists, when planning out their pages, will before they even draw the characters, will use these lines of action to be able to figure out and plot out the guide for the entire page. So that way they know how to design each and every single panel to lead into the next to create a very guided tour through the entire page and make sure that we're not going to be missing out on anything. Also, it creates even more fun and stronger uh, clashes between figures. So that leads us into the third exercise where I want you to draw one panel where you create an interesting clash between two lines and use this as your starting point for a quick sketch. So the first thing you need to do is to just draw two lines. And then after that, you draw your figure and your sketch on top of those lines. So I recommend that you spend about maybe 10 minutes on this. Go ahead and pause the video, and I will see you once we return. Catch you in a bit. Okay, now that we have completed our third exercise, I'd like to be able to revisit everything that we've learned so far and how it relates to page composition. So, composition is the means by which the artist leads a viewer's eye through an image, but is not limited to only panels. The composition that makes up a page is also a narrative element very unique to comics. If we return to Tips for Guiding a Reader Through Comic Art by Tom Foster, we'll see that this page here demonstrates that the eye can also be led through the page by intentionally lining up the panels and actions that lead into one another. So starting with the dialogue panels, panel 1 and panel 2, we'll see that the panel direction leads everything to the right. Now the focus is maintained along a steady horizontal line across the page, cutting to an abrupt diagonal when things begin to heat up. And here we see that camera angles are being able to use, or to be used to be able to take us from the first row into the second and third rows, where we begin to see some lines of action creating some good clashes between the characters. So finally, we finish with a Dutch angle when the unmasked man gets knocked off balance. And here we can see that the artist has employed multiple visual narrative tools to direct the story in this page in just ways that you cannot get from other forms of visual storytelling. So when you're designing a page composition, you should set out to create a comprehensive rhythm to follow so that way you're not zipping all around the page, but trying to be able to create a balance where the reader is taken to. This gives you a lot of narrative control over the reader's experience throughout the entire page. And so that's going to lead us into our final activity that is going to be utilizing all three of our exercises. And I want you to sketch out a 4-panel page. So this could be done in any style that you want. And you could choose how many rows you have, or if they're all going to be side by side. The option is going to be totally up to you. But the script is panel 1. Your protagonist is falling. Now, what camera angle here are you going to be using for this? Do you want us to feel that they are in control? And so, are we going to have them falling, but we're still looking up, making us feel like they got everything handled? Or do you want us to start feeling a little bit of worry for them? So with panel 1, make sure that you don't just present the information straight to us. Use your camera angle to be able to make us feel what your protagonist is feeling as they are falling. Panel 2, your character is going to shoot a grappling gun to save themselves. Now this goes back to exercise 1, where you can use different different elements of like pointing or looking to be able to direct the reader into the next panel. So if they're going to be pulling out a grappling gun to save themselves, where are they going to be pointing at? So of course they're going to be pointing at some high ledge to be able to shoot the grappling gun at to save themselves. But you get to choose the angle in such a fashion that will be able to lead us into panel 3, where they recover and swing away. And again, we can use the swinging action to be able to lead us into the final panel, panel 4, where we use this momentum and the protagonist delivers a devastating flying kick to a bad guy of your choice. Kapow! So here we get to use line of action to be able to create a very fun and dynamic clash between these two characters. Now, I recommend that you spend about 45 minutes sketching this out. You can also maybe spend up to an hour. Some people may take 30, some people may take 45 or an hour. You have as much time as you want. So I recommend that you go ahead and you pause it, pause the video, and I will see you once you're finished. And that just about does it. Thank you very much for tuning in to my workshop on composition today. We covered over a lot of great things, from panel direction and how every panel can interact with the panels both before it and after it. We covered over camera angles and how you can use it not only to your advantage of being able to have a stronger composition in just that one single panel, but how you can also change up the camera angles to be able to work with lines of action and create even stronger panel direction. And then with lines of action, we were able to work out how to be able to make quick and easy and very interesting compositions using nothing more than maybe 1 or 2 lines. And then finally, we had a really fun adventure with our protagonist zipping around the city on a grappling hook and then just kapow, knocking a bad guy straight in the face. So I hope you guys had a lot of fun with today's workshop. If you ever see yourself on Kennesaw campus, and if you notice my blue hair, make sure that you say hi. Take pictures of your work. I would love to see what you have. So anyways, I hope that you enjoy the rest of the festival. There's a lot of great videos to be able to check out, and I just recommend that you check them all out. They're going to be a lot of fun. Anyways, that's it for me. Again, my name is Chris Malone, and I hope that you have a great rest of the festival. Bye, everyone.